Honored, and thank you, Dale, for that really great presentation. I was furiously taking notes, so that was really inspiring. And we really do believe that for this foundational technology to really take its place in the new digitally native future, that we really do need to put our arms down, hands together, and work shoulder to shoulder. I think that's another term that you use very often, to build that new future together. Here I am. So I'm Arry Yu, Executive Director for the U.S Blockchain Coalition. And I'll be presenting the State of Web3. We built this 106-page report earlier this year that built out a battle card for every single state across the United States, looking at the economic impact of the Web3 industry state by state. We looked at the number of startups. We looked at federal grants and research going on at the academic institutions. We looked at venture capital and public sources of funding. We looked at the list of incumbents. So the whole ecosystem is what we mapped out state by state. A little just quick intro. I'm an entrepreneur and technologist by background, 22 years. Coming from the Pacific Northwest, working for the likes of Google and Microsoft is my background. We really believe, as the U.S. Blockchain Coalition, that the states are the best laboratories for democracy. I'm really just like in awe to be here in Washington, D.C. and seeing the very giant buildings and just beautiful architecture of the city. But we also want to remember that the states, that's where the people live. That's where we are here, boots on the ground, as entrepreneurs and as builders and as families and as friends. And the states have so much power and there's so much opportunity that we're very often missing because there's just so much going on here in DC as well. If you ever want to see the full report, please email me. It's broken out by region based off the CHIPS Act. And so we broke out the report by the 6 different regions. But I'll just walk through the quick little high-level highlights, right? So we picked out some of the national trends. There are some interesting states across the US. We often talk about California or New York or, of course, Wyoming, Texas, and Florida. But there are a lot of states that are doing really great work. Dale Christie just came from Tennessee. Tennessee is actually very well known for the healthcare industry, especially in Web3. Nevada for gaming, Maryland for government. We have a lot of government investment going on in the world of Alabama, South Carolina, and Montana. Obviously, Texas, and another one that kind of popped up that we didn't realize was going to be there was Georgia. A lot of activity, not that much international investors. There has been a lot of hype and a lot of different narratives that have been in media, but at the end of the day, what we have seen is that startups are the ones that are doing a lot of the employment. And then we also see a lot of enterprises that are increasingly hiring and doing more research in this space. And so, as enterprises like Dale Christie at FedEx come out and share their stories of how they see the new future that we're going to be building together, I think this will become, the lights will come on for more and more of us. As mentioned before, most of the companies in the Web3 space are small. They're less than 50 people. And so just like America, it is these small companies that are the backbone of this industry. The thing that stuck out for Web3 companies, typically in startups, especially at the startup seed, Series A, you usually see a lot more of the United States venture capitalists that are investing. In the Web3 industry, just because it is supposed to be a global first technology, we see quite a few international investors. Over 29% of investors in Web3 companies are international. And so that's something to note. Whether you're an investor or you're an enthusiast or you're an entrepreneur. This chart is very exciting for a lot of folks. We looked at the count of startups by state, and then we also looked at billions of dollars that are invested into these startups by state. And so obviously, just because the great market activity that's going on in California and New York, they are number 1 and number 2. But if you look at the rest of the states, on the count of startups, we see Florida, Texas, Illinois, Delaware, Massachusetts, Washington, Colorado, and Georgia. Pretty interesting. On the right side, you'll see the billions of dollars invested. Some states did pop up that were, kind of unusual, right? Like Nevada's on there, Georgia's on there, New Jersey's on there. One state that we didn't see on there that we thought we would see a lot more of was Wyoming, just because they've done so much to make it a very favorable environment for Web3 companies. And so, that's where we come to, the markets are where the market is, right? Like most of the business, especially the economic activity in technology, is coming out of California and New York, and they are going to be the big drivers of the policy conversation too as well. A lot of incumbent growth is happening. I mean, we heard from, again, FedEx, but there's JP Morgan Chase, Fox, Cigna, Overstock. We wanted to document that there is quite a few enterprise and incumbent activity in this Web3 space. Despite what may be perceived, the federal government is also increasing spend year over year in this space. When I first heard this, I was like, oh, really interesting. Is it all around workforce development, right, and jobs? Maybe, but it's actually really around research and building out proof of concepts and prototypes in this technology. So I thought that was really interesting. So despite what is being reported in the media, we are seeing a lot more federal funding coming in. Wanted to just highlight a few states, New York, Texas, and of course my state of Washington State. But here, the Empire State, you can see the ecosystem mapping. I mean, New York is firing on all cylinders, right? Whether you look at startups or investments or incumbents or academia or government, over 969 startups. A bunch of them are unicorns. 39% have received at least one round of funding, and 10 companies already. I mean, if you consider how old this Web3 space is, it's astonishing at the pace that these companies are going to IPO or getting acquired. Just the exit pace is just really, really strong. And we also do a second page for a larger state, so we also documented the jobs. A lot of times when we're talking to policymakers, they're like, yeah, jobs, but are they all super coders, wearing black hoodies and blockchain engineers? No, there's a lot of jobs in this industry. Customer support, analysis, marketing, community. Here's Texas, lone states, they've been very focused on the Bitcoin mining front, but as you'll see with this year in the North American Blockchain Summit, they're focusing on expanding their horizons and supporting the rest of the Web3 ecosystem. Again, like there's just, they're firing on all cylinders as well, but doing extremely well on the academia, government, and incumbent investment front. Again, jobs noted. And then for my last part, talking about Washington State, I circled in red because, for me, as being in Washington State physically, we've been really doing great on the incumbent. Washington is probably the epicenter of the enterprise activity across the United States. We do really great on the startup and VC front, but one area that is a weakness is around federal funding. Very few startups out of Washington State are getting actually that public sources of funding, and we have very little engagement from academia, and so that's something that we're working on improving. And that's it. It's kind of like the state of the affairs amongst the states.